Dear members of the media, welcome to this press conference following the meeting between the Nordic and Canadian foreign ministers. My name is Mikko Koivumaa. I'm the Director General of Communications at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland and the moderator of this event. We have approximately 20 minutes for today's press conference. First, we will hear statements from the ministers, and then what follows is a brief Q&A session. Without further ado, we will begin with a statement from our host, Minister Elina Valtonen. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mikko, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here, and it is so my pleasure to welcome again my dear friends around these tables here. We've had very productive, almost 2 days, discussing topical issues and events, and as ever, we are so united behind not just the core values which we have held dear forever, but essentially also the core policies which we will be driving forward with ever increasing energy. And as a testament to this, we have today put together a joint statement for the support of Ukraine, which will be released shortly. And indeed, the timing of this meeting could not be more appropriate. In difficult times, close coordination and cooperation with like-minded allies is more important than ever. And I should emphasize that in the Nordic family, we obviously feel as family, even though probably everybody was happy to have a couple weeks off with the proper family. But our Canadian colleague, Anita Anand, who is here with us today, really is fitting the bill just exactly as everybody else. So thank you so much for being here today. Now, on the events yesterday, the meetings those meetings altogether are a true demonstration of the US, Europe, and Ukraine having a united determination and pursuit for peace. And indeed, now it is up to Putin to put words into action. Sadly, as the leaders last night, Finnish time, were working on advancing peace in Washington, Putin was busy bombing civilian targets in Ukraine. In the region of Poltava, especially in the form of cruise missiles, you would have drones like we have experienced, unfortunately, on a daily basis in Ukraine, but also ballistic missiles. Putin started this war, and Putin could end his war even today if he wanted to. This is why we will continue to increase pressure on Russia's war economy together with our partners and allies. The EU's 19th sanctions package is a key element in ramping up that pressure. The next concrete action point is to work out the modalities regarding credible security guarantees. We have already started this work in the coalition of the willing with the United States. In the peace negotiations, we stand firmly with Ukraine. Only Ukraine can decide its own borders and future, including its EU and NATO path. The immediate priority is to stop the killing and bring the abducted children and prisoners of war home. And in this regard, a special thanks to Canada for your tireless efforts in bringing back those children. We will continue our military assistance to Ukraine's rightful self-defense. Ukraine's defense forces are Europe's strongest. A strong Ukraine in the battlefield is a prerequisite for a just and lasting peace. Today, we have also had fruitful discussions on other current topics, including the Arctic, the Middle East, and geoeconomics. With this, I'm happy to pass on the word to Anita, I guess, if Mikko doesn't have anything to add. Please.
No, thank you, Mr. Valtonen, and yes, that's correct. We will now hear a statement from Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anita Anand. Minister Anand, the floor is yours.
Bonjour tout le monde, good afternoon. Yava Paiva.
Yava Paiva, wow.
Istavat, Ustavat. Dervezet Kahai Kilda, Canada, Lightzilla. I want to thank you, Elina, Minister Valtonen, and our Finnish hosts for welcoming us, as well as for your current leadership of the N5 presidency. And to all of my foreign minister friends here from the N5, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland, thank you so much for the conversation, the discussion, and I look forward to continued partnership. I'm here because of your invitation and because deepening our economic, security, and regional cooperation is a core pillar of Canada's Arctic foreign policy. 70% of Canada's coastline is Arctic facing. 40% of Canada's landmass is Arctic facing. And we will continue to work together with all of you to advance the strategic Arctic and transatlantic partnership that exists between our nations. I will be conveying this through meetings with my counterparts here, obviously, and with President Stubb later today. And I will just say closer collaboration is the name of the game. In today's geostrategic environment, with pressing economic, military, and defense cooperation issues, our collaboration means so much. And in fact, this partnership is more than strategic. It is natural, given our shared northern geographies, as well as our common values, our common interests, and our common priorities. Canada, like the Nordic countries, is focused on results. We're exploring a number of tangible actions that we can take together on key foreign policy and security priorities. And these priorities include Arctic and transatlantic security, Ukraine, NATO, and the rules-based international order. And as we have seen over the past few days, this cooperation is particularly relevant in light of developments over Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. My colleagues and I had a fruitful conversation, as Elena mentioned, about how we are going to work together on a series of issues, including Ukraine, support for Ukraine, security guarantees for Ukraine, and of course, ensuring that we are there in the short and long term for Ukraine in seeking its territorial integrity and its enduring sovereignty. In an increasingly volatile world, in other words, Canada and the Nordic countries are strategic, stable partners. We have long benefited from cooperation, and today we have deepened and will continue to deepen that cooperation. Thank you. Merci. Kiitos.
Kiitos.
Thank you, Minister Anand. And now Denmark's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Elina, for your warm welcome and for hosting us in these beautiful surroundings. I'm really delighted to be here among friends, as you said. And I guess it's right to say that Nordic cooperation is stronger and more important than ever. We share fundamental values with Canada as well, and security interests, and we are close friends. And this is a critical moment in time, and we remain in daily contact. But this meeting has been an important opportunity for us to discuss unfolding events in person and to ensure that we are aligned and to help push developments in the right direction. Speaking with one voice increases our impact, and especially because we have proven that we have been able to bring our cooperation beyond just speaking. We have actually walked the talk. And I am very proud of our collective Nordic efforts to support Ukraine. And if more countries followed the Nordic example, the way we lead, Ukraine would be in a much stronger position. And therefore we also have the, I would say, moral upper hand when we send this very clear message that we first welcome the ongoing diplomatic efforts to end the war, and secondly, that we will continue to support Ukraine. And thirdly, the need for pressure on Russia will remain and will continue. We stand ready to maintain our substantial military and financial support to Ukraine and impose further restrictive measures against Russia, and to support Ukraine's effort to achieve a just and lasting peace with credible security guarantees. And that is perhaps the most important takeaway from the meeting yesterday, that there will now be a transatlantic cooperation about defining the needed security guarantees. We will continue to project Nordic and European solidarity behind Ukraine. And I'm happy that we had the chance these days in Finland to reaffirm those positions among friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Rasmussen. And now Norway's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Espen Barth Eide.
Well, Kitos, thank you very much to Alina and team for fantastic hospitality. It's a lovely place to meet, and it's been a really good meeting. And as has been said, Nordic cooperation has always been very important for us, very close, but never as much as now, both because we are all in NATO and also because the security surroundings, the situation in our part of the world is more dramatic than it has been for a lifetime. So it's really a good time to meet and to stay together. And we are thrilled to have Anita and have Canada here, also to discuss Arctic issues in addition to Ukraine and other security issues. I want to say that well, a little bit less than a year ago, we Nordics went to Iqaluit in Nunavut in North Canada and visited the Canadian Arctic, and we had some very good conversations there, which we have continued here. And the togetherness and the common perspective, both in interest and values, that we share as Arctic, 6 of the 8 Arctic nations, is very important. So I'm very happy about that. On Ukraine, pressure must continue on Russia. The support must and will continue. And peace is good, but it has to be just and lasting to be a real peace. And these are issues that we coordinate very closely around these days. And concluding, I should also say that particularly yesterday, we also had the chance to discuss the Middle East and the way to end the war, to get more humanitarian aid in, and to think about how not only stopping this war, but also the deeper conflict through a two-state solution, which is a main theme of the upcoming UN General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Barth Eide. Now we will hear from Iceland's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Þorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it is, of course, a pleasure to be here in Nuuksio. I think I pronounce it rightly, Nuuksio, with our dear Nordic family, but also our very close friend from Canada. This collaboration between these countries embodies, from my point of view, the fundamental values these countries stand for, be it democracy, be it freedom, or standing up for human rights, or speaking out loud for respect for international law. That is very important that these voices are heard in these turbulent times. On Ukraine, I agree with everything what my colleagues here are saying. These countries here presented at this meeting, we have been among the strongest supporters of Ukraine. This is also well reflected in our statement, and I recommend that you read that very perfectly and perfect statement. We all want peace and no more, of course, than Ukraine. We also welcome US efforts and strong European cooperation with, of course, Canada and the US and UK. Unity is, of course, the key, but I want also to mention we must be aware not to produce the modern times of Chamberlain, a modern times Chamberlain. So we must be aware our fight is for peace in Ukraine, and it must be just, it must be lasting with powerful security guarantees, and it must not undermine the long-term security, of course, of Europe. We discussed the Arctic, of course. It's extremely important. I underline everything what Espen said, and I think it's important that we discussed more strength on E7 behalves inside NATO, and that we are turning the focus on NATO a little bit more up to the Arctic and the North Atlantic. We discussed also the last 24 hours the situation in the Middle East, and it's quite clear the Icelandic position is We must see more action. We must do more. Words are not enough, and we must do everything we can to help reverse the course with regards to the horrible situation in Gaza and also increasingly in West Bank. That is of quite concern. And from my point of view, that diminishes or destroys almost the possibility for and prospects for peace in the foreseeable future. So, like has been also mentioned, the two-state solution conference in New York in July, it was a momentous occasion. And the leaders meeting now in New York upcoming in September hopefully will bring us further forward, so towards to the only solution from my point of view that can bring sustainable peace for both nations of Israel and Palestine. And just to conclude, as well, our meeting here in Nuksio has been a firm expression of our commitment to deepen our already strong bonds. And I think this collaboration is so important, more important than ever. So we have to speak out loud, like I said earlier. And in the last, to conclude, dear Elina and dear Finland, thank you for your great hospitality in this wonderful surroundings of Nuksio, and next time I will bring my family with me on a private occasion. It's wonderful to be here.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gunnarsdottir. And now Sweden's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Maria Malmer Stenegard, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you, dear Elina, for inviting us to beautiful Nuksio. It's really great to be back in Finland. It's great to be back with my dear Nordic and Canadian friends in a time of geopolitical instability. And I agree with everything that my friends have said. We are very much like-minded, so maybe what I could add is that the sauna yesterday was really great, and it was a very refreshing swim. But on a more serious note, we find ourselves standing at a crossroads where we need to choose between standing up for international law or go back to a world where might equals right. Our countries, together, we stand firm in protection of international law, and that is why we support Ukraine, and that is why we emphasize that borders cannot be moved with force. And I'm very happy about the statement that was very strong. And that is why in Gaza we put pressure on both Hamas and on Israel to stop the suffering of civilians, and that is why we also stand up for a rules-based trade system. This family is more important than ever, which I think everyone has underscored, and together we have a very strong voice that we also use. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Stenegard. Thank you, ministers. And now we have just a couple of minutes for questions, so if you wish to ask one, please raise your hand and wait for my signal and the microphone, and kindly introduce yourself before making your questions and indicate which minister your question is addressed to. And as a reminder for Finnish media, you will have a chance to ask in Finnish later on, so let's keep this in English. Okay, so let's do 3 questions. Here, here, and there. So.
Reuters News. I would like to ask all the ministers, do your respective countries stand ready to send troops to Ukraine under the leadership of the United States if the security guarantees promised to Ukraine yesterday will materialize? Thank you.
Then next question from here.
Yeah, hello, Jesper Tobo Carlsen from Politiken in Denmark. Some of you mentioned the General Assembly next month in New York, and it seems that 4 of you going into that assembly are in favor of recognizing a Palestinian state. The Danish government has come out against that. Finland, I'm not quite sure. I'm not an expert on Finnish politics, but maybe as a question you can inform me, Minister, what the Finnish position is, and have you discussed this? And is there a Nordic position? Have you come closer to a Nordic agreement on this issue?
Just to clarify, are you addressing one or all ministers?
Well, this is, I guess, a question for the Finnish minister, okay. Since it would take too much time.
Okay, thank you very much.
All of you.
And then last question from here.
I'm Tuli Kukka, different Finnish broadcasting company. I'm addressing this to all of you, but if Anand and Valtonen can answer later, preferably before. How credible do you see that the peace plan for Ukraine could be without a ceasefire? And also about security guarantees. What type of further deal, or would it be troops or ammunition, military aid for Ukraine, did you possibly discuss here as part of the security guarantees?
I suggest we start with the host who was addressed all three questions and then take it from there. Minister, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the questions. What comes to troops to Ukraine, my colleagues are, of course, welcome to comment, but I can speak on all of our behalf to the extent that we have started the work within the Coalition of the Willing framework, and there have been no decisions thus far as what comes to the overall framework and neither to the individual contributions. So that would certainly be the answer from the Finnish side, at least. Sorry. Then what comes to the question of Palestine and the Middle East, two things. We of course discussed this in very strong detail and to great depth. We agree. The first thing is of course that this immediate situation which is unfolding in Gaza and which unfortunately has been unfolding for too long, has to come to an end. And I should add, not just in Gaza, but especially in the West Bank, which is happening a little bit under the radar. Israel is extending its settlements, which to begin with are against international law, and also settler violence has increased. So this is really the right time to not just address the acute problem of not enough humanitarian aid, of really human suffering across the Gaza Strip, but also the suffering of the people who are robbed of their lands and their possibilities to create their future. Now, the second thing is political process towards a two-state solution. Finland, just like everybody here, is a strong promoter of the two-state solution, and we don't see any other possibility for a lasting, peaceful future in the Middle East, other than solving the conflict between Israel and Palestine according to the two-state solution. And now we not only salute, but also strongly contribute and participate in the work which has now led to a conference already in New York a couple of weeks ago on the two-state solution, on finding parameters within the international group of countries, what would in practice imply, or what would be the requirements for, in practice, putting together the two-state solution on both sides, securing the future and the security for Palestine, but also the same for Israel. And we are working together with our international partners on the criteria which involve a peaceful administration in Palestine, getting rid of Hamas in the administration, also disarming Hamas, and also there's a project or there's a prospect for a demilitarized Palestine whose security would be taken care of, by the international community. So we are contributing to this. And at some point in the process, there will be a recognition, but we don't have any new news here. And we are certainly scrutinizing the right moment. and again, discussing this also together with our partners. And everything we do needs to contribute to the peaceful and constructive future towards the two-state model and not be just a symbol. And needless to say, we want all the hostages to be released, and we strongly condemn everything Hamas has done, not just on the 7th of October, but also thereafter. Now, on the final question, you asked whether the peace plan can be credible if there's no ceasefire. Well, I would say it this way: there is no peace plan if there's no ceasefire, because you wouldn't have peace if there wasn't, a cessation of hostilities. So how we see this is that it is extremely good that we are in a situation where we are talking about peace and we are talking about a credible, lasting solution to the extremely unfortunate and, devastating war of aggression that Russia has been waging against Ukraine for way too long. At the same time, we haven't seen anything from Russia yet which would prove that they are ready to actually be involved in a true peace process. They are masters in buying time. And therefore, whereas we welcome the possibility of finding a peace solution quickly, I guess experience has shown that peace solutions, especially lasting ones, don't come about too quickly, but we are happy to support this process, very much so. But if it didn't happen too quickly, then two things would need to happen. We would need to continue to press on ending the hostilities and stopping the killing, starting with stopping the killing of civilians and stopping the deporting of children, and rather bringing them back. And the second thing is, if this doesn't happen, we need to add pressure on Russia in any possible way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I will offer the possibility to answer to Minister Anand, please.
I will speak about the Ukraine question, if I could, just to add to what Alina has said, but adding the Canadian perspective, if I could. First of all, there is an opportunity now to end Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. And as I said, security guarantees are essential to any just and lasting peace. The idea of a security guarantee, however, is not new this week. We have been discussing the importance of stable security guarantees at least since the Vilnius summit in 2023. The work that the Coalition of the Willing is doing now is absolutely fundamental to adding the structure around the security guarantees, and in particular, the obligations that each country will adhere to. But the commitment to a security guarantee has been present, and that's important. Why? Because Ukraine's sovereign independence and territorial integrity has been long recognized as fundamental to ending the unjust and illegal war that Russia began and perpetuated on February 24th, 2022. For Canada's part, we have trained over 44,000 members of the Ukrainian Armed Forces through Operation Unifier, that is an operation of the Canadian Armed Forces, and have built up a strong partnership with Ukraine and the Ukrainian Armed Forces that will stand the test of time. And we will be there in the short and the long term for Ukraine. We've put on the table $22 billion in humanitarian, financial, and military aid for Ukraine. Now, security guarantees are one piece of this analysis, but let's not forget the important aid that has been necessary to ensure that Ukraine continues its defense strongly for its country. And finally, on sanctions, Canada has sanctioned over 3,000 individuals and entities, including Putin and his inner circle, members of the Russian Security Council, and we've added sanctions for the protection of Ukrainian culture from destruction by Russia, and participated in the oil and gas cap recently. So make no mistake, we signed this statement together, all of us, on Ukraine, because we all believe that Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty are absolutely fundamental, not only to the survivability of Ukraine, but to the democratic principles upon which we have relied as countries for our own freedom and security since the end of the Second World War. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And since we have already run out of time, I would ask very brief responses from our four Nordic guests, starting from Sweden.
Okay, thank you. Well, on security guarantees, I would say even though we've been discussing this for quite some time, we are still early in the process. So Sweden has said that we are willing to contribute, but we'll come back to how when the details are being defined. And we have always said that it is important that US is involved. So therefore, I think that the statements that have been made by President Trump during the recent days are very positive. But like I said, we have a lot to work out in the coalition of the willing. Thank you.
Thank you, and then Denmark, please.
Yeah, I promise to be brief, because I said in my opening remarks that we share values and we walk the talk, and therefore it's easy. The third question, I totally agree with Elena said in her very comprehensive answer. And according to the first question about security guarantees, I mean, since we walk the talk, we are also, and I'm talking about Denmark, in principle ready to participate. But as Maria said, it's still work in early process. But we are, in principle, of course, ready to participate. And then just a small remark to Jesper Turbo, because I think we all want to recognize Palestine. So it's basically a question about timing. It's a question whether it should be a recognition under the assumption that this and that will happen, or it should be under the precondition that this and that happen. And we had an in-depth discussion about that yesterday, and I think we should continue our cooperation on this particular field, because I don't think the differences in the Nordic family are as big as you could have the impression if you just look at whether it's recognition now or not now.
Thank you. Norway, please.
Yes, first on security guarantees, yes, we have been participating in this throughout the planning process because we want to contribute to what we end up doing. But of course, until we have concluded exactly what that is, it's too early to say in exactly what way. But let me just remind you that the whole idea is that first you need a ceasefire and a peace, and then there's a peace agreement, and if that is violated, the security guarantees will kick in. So security guarantees is not going into the war as it is today, but it is to prevent it from restarting. And that, in principle, can happen both with troops inside Ukraine or without troops inside Ukraine. I mean, many NATO countries have very firm security guarantees to protect them without necessarily having troops physically present. Then you will have concrete military planning exercises and a clear concept for how you would, in a credible way, support Ukraine in that case. So with that understanding, at least we will definitely contribute, but we need to know what to contribute to before we can answer exactly what we will contribute. And then I want to echo Lars on the Middle East. I mean, yes, there are 4 countries that have recognized already, 2 who have not yet. But I believe that the Nordics and Canada are very much of the same view when it comes to the trajectory here. We need to end this horrible war. We need to improve the humanitarian situation immediately. But we also need to find a way to solve the underlying conflict, which did not start on 7th of October, but decades ago. And that requires a clear political solution between Israel and Palestine proper, not Hamas, but the Palestine government or Palestine Authority. And here, I think there's no difference in perspective. The only difference right now is the issue of sequencing. But since we collaborate on this, we will definitely keep coordinating our positions.
Thank you. And Iceland, please.
Yes, regarding the question from Reuters, the safeguards, of course, Iceland will participate and do what's necessary, but also bear in mind we have no army. If you are thinking about boots on the ground, we have no army. We are still a founding member of NATO since 1949, and we are, of course, participating in the coalition of the willing. So Iceland, we may be small in size, but we contribute in ways that matter. And just to give you the broader picture, we co-lead the demining coalition with Lithuania. We have also support battlefield medic training, supported that, and also we have funded equipment through the Czech and also the Danish initiatives. So we can do something like this, and we are ready to do what Ukraine is craving, and do what they need, and also what we can do to strengthen also the infrastructure of Ukraine. And I'm thinking of my first visit in the beginning of this year to Ukraine and to Kiev, and watching all the bombs the Russian bombs that destroyed electricities and generators, and that is something that we in Iceland could do as well. But of course, we will do what's needed.
Thank you, ministers. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This press conference has now concluded. The Finnish media will have a chance to ask questions in Finnish right outside of this building, right in just a couple of minutes, and there will be a bilateral opportunity to talk to ministers from Finland and Canada at around 2:20 on the second floor of this building, and our colleagues will guide you there. So thank you very much, and ministers, I will guide you out.
And whoever wants to come to speak in Finnish, please.
We learn. Keep this.